If I told you to guess which team has the best record in the NBA since the beginning of March, who would come to mind? I mean, the Celtics have been dominant all season, Jokic and the Nuggets are peaking at the right time, the Mavericks just won 11 straight behind the historic play of Luka. You've got options. However, it's actually been the Houston Rockets with a record of 13-3 leading the way, coming out of nowhere in a last-ditch effort to sneak into the play-in. Interestingly enough though, their number one option, Alperen Şengün, only played in 5 of those 16 games. So how is this possible? Well, it's simple. What we're watching right now is not the same Jalen Green. Jalen's big draw since entering the league has of course been his freakish athleticism, which really pops in the open floor. He's an extremely explosive vertical leaper off of either 1 or 2 feet who can make any play into a highlight, and that gives him access to above the rim finishing opportunities that don't even seem possible. I can't tell you how many other players even think about trying a dunk here. It's not just the height of his jumps, but how good he is at controlling his body in midair. All of his momentum is going into the body of a shot blocker, and he's coordinated enough to remain in balance before finishing through contact. This body control pairs extremely well with his speed. On a play like this where he's got a head of steam going at the rim and gets bumped from behind, again he's still able to lay it in. In the event that he doesn't have room to take off vertically, like when Kawhi steps up to meet him early, that's when you'll see him use some crafty strides to find an angle. He's got a pretty lengthy frame for his size, so when you also add in that speed and balance, a simple misdirection is all it takes for him to get to a tough finish. He's currently having by far the best transition scoring season of his career, averaging 4.5 points per game on an impressive 1.21 points per possession, both of which far exceed what he produced in years 1 and 2. But in my opinion, what he's capable of doing in the open floor has never really been a question mark. I mean, it's only natural that when you've got the speed of a wide receiver with ridiculous verticality, the defense is at your mercy on fast breaks. The concerns have always been in the half court, where he'll have these flashes or go on stretches that really make you see what the Rockets saw on draft day, yet he's been unable to consistently put his physical tools to use. Well, that seemed to change out of nowhere, as his meteoric mid-season rise is unlike anything I've ever seen. Just look at the difference in production. Over the first 58 games of this season, he was scoring 21 points per 75 on 52% true shooting. Not exactly ideal. With that, he was shooting just 48% on twos, 60% at the rim, and Houston had a pretty weak offense in his minutes. In 17 games since then, that scoring has been up to 27.5 points on almost 61% true shooting, thanks to a 7.5% increase in two-pointers, which is in large part due to an 11% increase at the rim. The Rockets have of course reaped the benefits, an offensive rating of 124 over the stretch. So what exactly has changed, if anything, or is this just an unsustainable hot streak? Do you by any chance remember Chandler Parsons? Maybe I can refresh your memory with some clips from 10 years ago when he set the record for the most three-pointers in a single half. In January of 2020 at age 33, he was struck by a drunk driver and sustained injuries that essentially put an end to his NBA career. While he never did return to the basketball court, he worked with Morgan & Morgan, found comfort in the name of justice, and received the compensation that he deserved. Personal injuries that impact everyday life are incredibly common, and many don't know that they might be entitled to large settlements. And those that do often run into issues with law firms, whether that's paperwork, issues with scheduling, or unappealing costs. If you're ever hurt or get in a serious accident, Morgan & Morgan, the largest personal injury law firm in the United States, will fight tooth and nail to get you what you deserve if you become their client. Parsons is only one of an insurmountable number of cases they've won. Just in the past couple months, they've achieved verdicts of up to $26 million. The best part? There's absolutely no fee unless you win, and getting started is as easy as it gets. All you have to do is go to forthepeople.com/hoop or click the link in the description, and with some basic information like name, phone number, and details of your case, you can submit a claim in just a matter of seconds. You can start your claim now with America's largest injury firm at forthepeople.com/hoop or by clicking the link in the description. One thing that's really stood out about Jalen's game recently is the way he's leaning into those physical traits as a slasher. On this drive, I really like how low to the ground he gets as he works his way past Huerter's hip, and with a smaller guard waiting down low, it's of course a vertical finish. When playing out in space, that sheer speed makes him a nightmare to contain. With just a slight hesitation, he's turning on the jets en route to a layup. Yet, he doesn't actually need a head of steam to beat defenders off the dribble. This time it's from a standstill where an explosive first step gets him downhill, and then some of that midair body control for 2 plus a foul. The way he can go from 0 to 100 allows him to capitalize on very small windows of opportunity. Like here, Daniel Theis is in a good drop position, he just isn't ready for the Ferrari SF90 that's turning the corner. With the burst, he's also really good at changing directions, meaning that when he's setting up pick and roll, defenders have to always be cautious of him rejecting the screen, otherwise he'll get to some more easy points. Over those last 17 games, he's attempting 6 shots at the rim every 75 possessions, and as I mentioned, he's made just under 71% of them. You want to know how many guards this season are exceeding 70% on at least 6 attempts? 0. Even if we take efficiency out of the equation, only 3 other guards are even taking that many. So we're talking about a guy who applies a lot of downhill pressure, especially relative to his position, which of course means he's gonna draw added attention down low. And I think he's been consistently making the right reads as a passer. In other words, it's tough to stay in front of this guy without compromising your defense. But even if his defender is able to cut him off, that doesn't mean the attack is over. One thing Green's gotten really good at is initiating contact as a way to force the issue. This is something that really stood out throughout the entirety of last season, where he landed in the 92nd percentile among all players at 6.5 free throw attempts per 75. That's a signal you really like to see from a young scorer, because even when the 3-point shot wasn't falling, he was struggling to finish around the rim. Playing with contact and getting to the line is one of the best ways to continue stressing the defense. That isn't his only counter though. Sometimes you'll see him start on a drive, get his lane taken away, and shift gears to pull back into a jumper. Using the mid-range shot as a fallback option for when you can't get to the rim is critical in taking that next step forward as a driver. Just think about guys like Shea, Luka, or even De'Aaron Fox. Once they put together that in-between game is when they really started to take off and play at heights we hadn't previously seen. With that said, I still think this is one of Jalen's biggest weak points. While those guys all take around 10 mid-rangers per 75, he's down at about 5. And that's because he shoots just a measly 35%. It's good that he's not forcing them at volume with such poor accuracy, but I do wonder if that's what his next leap looks like. Instead, what you'll see him do most of the time when he feels that his drive is about to get cut off is slow his momentum from a bit further and work his way back to the 3-point line for a shot from outside. His use of off-the-dribble threes pairs perfectly with his style of driving. He'll leverage the slashing threat with hesitations or exaggerated between-the-legs dribbles, which leaves him with room to pull back into jumpers. It could even be something as simple as a slight hezi. As he hangs the dribble, his defender is expecting a drive, which is more than enough room for him to pull the trigger. His go-to though are those nasty step backs, the way he can so effortlessly stop on a dime, and the footwork to hop his way back to the perimeter allows him to generate a ton of space. Just look at him on this one. He hesitates into a drive right, only to immediately break while pulling back, which creates at least 5 feet of room. That might as well be a wide open look. And the space creation isn't going anywhere. As long as he wants to shoot threes, he can get them off at great volume. The overarching question that everyone's trying to answer is, what level of shot maker is he truly? That tale of 2 seasons I earlier mentioned shows maybe the biggest disparity in this department. Over his last 15 games, he's hit 41% of his pull-up threes on just under 6 attempts a game. That's like 2015 Steph Curry good. No, I don't think that shooting is sustainable, but it feels like a pretty extended progression from the lackluster numbers he was putting up to start the season. If we look at the entire time he's been in the league, he's hit about 34%, which may not sound great as an overall 3-point percentage, Off the dribble though, that lands him firmly above average in the 63rd percentile. When considering volume and shot creation, it's enough to make him one of the league's more effective pull-up threats. The big thing for me though, is watching him over this past month has a much different vibe to it in terms of confidence. There was a game where he had 2 or 3 of these no-look makes that he knew were going in, and it seems he's more comfortable than ever taking really tough shots from behind the arc. That's why I question what level of shooter he truly is, because while the numbers over a 3-year sample already suggest he's a big-time threat, I think it's possible he could be even more than that. What if this newfound confidence becomes the norm? What if this mid-season shooting leap is more than real, and it's just a matter of time before opinions start to catch on? If that's the case, I'm really not sure how teams are supposed to defend him in the pick and roll. When he takes that first step, his defender makes an effort to go under, to which he pumps the brakes for a 3. This time the big is back in a deep drop coverage, so by just simply using the screen, he's got a ton of room. And on this one, the big is up a bit higher, Jalen starts to attack, then after seeing it's a drop, decides to step back into open space. My favorite aspect of his game in the pick and roll though, is the way he's able to turn the corner. Chet's up in a high drop, so he hesitates before starting a drive, and once again it's the speed. He's more than comfortable attacking bigs in space. This time he fakes a drive right before crossing back to his left, which leaves him with some room to take off. And the way he's able to apply pressure like this of course forces the big to play a bit closer to the ball, leaving open a shovel pass to the roller. As a result, defenses really don't want him coming off of screens with room to attack. So what OKC did down the stretch of their recent matchup was blitz these actions. On this one he splits right down the middle, and with a launch pad in front of the rim, I think you already know the result. Just a minute later, they set up the pick and roll again, and as Joe gets ready to jump out, Jalen instead rejects the action on a drive. This time help meets him early, so instead of verticality, he goes to some of those lengthy strides. Then again in overtime he gets the blitz, waits for the second defender to clear out so that he can attack one-on-one, starts a drive, only to showcase his signature step back as he fires off a 3. And finally to close out the game, it's another blitz that he splits down the middle as he gets to the rim for 2 more on a tough finish. Of course, drawing these more aggressive coverages with 2 on the ball also leaves the defense more vulnerable to passing, and like I said earlier, I feel he's been making the right reads. It isn't anything really advanced as he's not some incredible passer, but like here he takes 1 extra dribble to freeze the big before hitting his roller with nobody to protect the rim. Or how about this one where Vooch is up in a high drop and he attacks him on a drive, resulting in 2 on the ball, which leaves his roller with some room to turn and finish. This next one's a personal favorite of mine, where it looks like he's setting up pick and roll only to explode in the opposite direction, while Amen Thompson cuts baseline for an easy catch and finish. With all of that said, I still think Jalen has some pretty clear limitations as a primary creator. Not just because of the fact that he isn't a high-level passer, but also due to some issues with his ball handling. Sometimes he can get a bit out of control and doesn't have the greatest ball security when dealing with added pressure or through tight quarters. And every now and then you'll see him get lackadaisical with the ball as he sets up the offense, resulting in some avoidable turnovers. I also think his lack of a true mid-range game takes away an option in the pick and roll. On this one he's met with a deep drop and steps back into a long 2, but what I want you to focus on is the manner in which he's getting to these spots. After turning the corner, he's left with at least 10 feet of space to flow right into a pull-up jumper, except he's not comfortable doing that. Instead he gets closer, stops, and steps back. That not only makes it a longer shot, it also lets the big get a hand up. However, I think it's a double-edged sword. Because he doesn't want to step into pull-up middies, he's more prone to attack that space, and the athleticism means he can probably create a decent look at the rim. Either way, due to some of the on-ball limitations, Houston makes an effort to take away some of that pressure within their offensive system by starting him off-ball and letting him attack off of movement. Oftentimes that means corner screening action where a big will bring him towards the middle with a handoff, although the defense better make sure they don't leave him with an opportunity to backdoor. These actions are exactly why I don't understand how people could think Jalen's rise is correlated to Şengün's injury in any way. This unlocks both Green's athleticism and Alpe's unique passing ability. Of course, Jalen can also threaten the cut first before actually moving into the handoff, this time getting the ball with some room to launch a triple. Every now and then they'll go to Chicago action, meaning a third player will set a pin down to make getting that handoff a bit easier. On this one, the movement forces Sabonis into a switch, and just like that, you've got a favorable matchup for him to attack in isolation. Most importantly though, is how much chemistry they can build in the high pick and roll. Remember, Jalen's been consistently drawing two to the ball. I want you to imagine for a second that this is Şengün catching the ball with a 4-on-3 advantage to attack. That sounds pretty tough to defend. All that's to say, yes, with the loss of Şengün, Jalen's seen an increase to his offensive load. He's touching the ball about 9 more times a game and has it in his hands for an extra minute, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the driving force behind his increase in production. His shooting is peaking at the right time, he's leaning into his athleticism by attacking in the open floor or in high pick and roll, and the level of confidence he's playing with is unlike anything we've seen in his young career. I know the season's coming to a close, but I personally cannot wait to see how much of this carries into next year, or maybe if he finds a way to improve on one or two of those limitations I mentioned. One thing's for sure though, this has to be precisely what Houston envisioned when looking for their star scorer of the future. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Green. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.